Study. My pranams to all Atma Jyotis, divine light of the self. Sorry. Let us contemplate today about self-awareness. The entire spiritual journey is from self-identity to self-awareness. It is not an achievement to recognize my true nature as the self. In a state of forgetfulness, I have different identities. I take up different identities. Three primary identities are: I am the body, I am the mind, and I am the intellect. These are respectively called Kartaham, Bhoktaham, Gnataham. When I take my identity as a body, the body identity, anything happening to the body, I consider as happening to myself. Body, there's a growth of the body, I say I am growing. The body becomes weak, I say I am weak. Whatever is happening to body is superimposed on the self, where I am pointing to self. Right? So when I take my identity as the mind, anything which is happening to the mind is taken superimposed on the self. I am happy, I am unhappy, I am angry. All these things are superimposed on the self. So, and when I take myself as intellect, I know this, I don't know this. The knowledge and ignorance is superimposed on the self. So these are called Kartaham, Bhoktaham, Gnataham. Kartaham because I am the body and body is doer, I think I am the doer. Bhoktaham because mind is the enjoyer and I consider myself as enjoyer. Gnataham is the intellect is the knower. Intellect has knowledge and I consider myself as a knower. These are superimposed on the self. What happens when doership is superimposed on self? I am the body. The body is required for any action. Action involves result. Results involves impression, good and bad. Actions are called karma phala. I subject myself to karma and karmic cycle. I am perpetually in karmic cycle when I associate myself with the body. And when I associate myself with the mind, I am perpetually in a cycle of mental ups and downs. Mind is always a roller coaster. Goes through ups and downs in life. Anger, fear, tension, anxiety, all these things are superimposed on the self. When I am the knower, I know something, I don't know something. Knowledge and ignorance is superimposed on the self. In reality, the self is free from all of this. Okay. Self is like a screen on which the movies are appearing. The movie like body, mind, and intellect is appearing and disappearing. The movies don't affect the self, but When the movie is there, present, movie is there, project on the screen is not seen. The screen is covered. The self is covered by these identities. Okay. And I start living my life as kartaham, bhoktaham, gnataham. I am the doer, I am the enjoyer, I am the knower. And this is the cause of suffering, because as a karta, as a doer, I am in karmic cycle. As a bhokta, enjoyer, I am perpetually looking for happiness, which I never get fully. And as gnata, I am perpetually looking for knowledge, which I can't get perfect knowledge. So always I live in a feeling of deficiency, inadequacy. Only way to come out of this inadequacy is to recognize the true nature of the self as awareness. How do I do that? And what prevents me from recognizing that I am the self? Our attention is always on the objects of the world. I want to see something, I want to experience something, my attention goes towards that. We might have seen children when you take the children through a shopping complex. The child is attracted by a toy, a car. Immediately its attention shifts to another cycle, another marble, another balloon. The attention keeps shifting, which is attractive. We are attracted by the objects of the world. So that's why attention always goes back, always is wandering in the objects of the world. Keep shifting from here to there. Wherever our attention is there, we get the knowledge of that. If my attention goes to a flower, I know there is a flower. If my attention goes to a plant, I know there is a plant. Wherever attention goes, the knowledge of that happens. When does my attention go back to the self? It never goes back. It keeps on wandering all around, because the world seems to be attractive, the mind seems to be attractive, thought seems to be attractive. The attention keeps on wandering in the objects of the world, physical objects of the world, or mental objects, or knowledge. Physical objects of the world, I want to see this, I want to see that, I want to see this movie, I want to watch TV, physical object. Mental object is, okay, some time back I met a friend, I was so happy. Now my friend is not there. Where is my friend? I'm so unhappy. So mental objects, it keeps wandering. Or it can go wander in the subjects of knowledge. Okay, I studied this subject. So engineering, this subject I studied, knowledge. So my mind, my attention is only wandering in the objects of the world, or mental objects, or knowledge. If I have to know myself, my attention has to go back to self. No, it doesn't go back at all. It will keep on wandering outside. Our attention, mind is directed outwards. How does the attention go back to the self? If attention doesn't go back to the self, how do you recognize yourself? That's why Sri Ramana Maharshi says one simple question: who are you? When he asks the question, who are you? The idea is to shift your attention from the objects of the world to the self. Because when I say, who am I? The I here is the self. So Ramana Maharshi is asking our attention to be shifted from the objects of the world to the self. That's all. Entire spiritual journey is shifting the attention from the objects of the world, or objects of the mind, or objects of knowledge, to the self. Shift your attention to the self. That's all is who my question is doing. Who am I question doesn't get an answer, because for every question there is an answer. So if I ask a question, where is the TV? Attention goes there, and I say there is a TV. So there is knowledge that the TV comes. I know the TV is there. The knowledge is there. When attention goes to the objects, the knowledge of object is there. But when attention goes back to the self, there's no knowledge, because there's no knower and known. There's no subject object. Attention has returned to the self. Then there's only self. For the who am I question, there is no answer. The attention returns back to the self. Otherwise, attention is wandering all over. Right? When the attention returns back to the self, there's a self-awareness. The entire spiritual journey is shift the attention from the object to the subject, the self. And when the attention goes back to the self, there's a sense of deep peace within. As long as the attention is wandering in the objects of the world, there's no peace. There's a restlessness. Let us understand why attention wanders in the objects of the world. Where does my attention go? The attention goes to any object or anything which is interesting. TV serial is interesting. My attention goes to TV serial. The student wants to sit and study, but his mind is going to the cricket match. Attention is going to cricket match. He's not able to study because cricket match gives him happiness. Attention goes to always towards the objects which gives happiness. We don't know the self alone gives happiness. That's why attention doesn't go back to self. Right? If we know that self alone gives the happiness, then attention will go back to self. We don't know. Always we are looking for happiness from the outside world. That's why attention keeps on going there. As I told you earlier, the attention is not in the objects of the world. If sugar gives happiness to somebody, the sugar gives unhappiness to person with the diabetes. The happiness is not in the sugar. Then why does somebody feel happy when he puts sugar into the mouth? When he puts sugar into the mouth, the mind becomes silent at that point of time. When the mind is silent, the happiness or the bliss of the self is experienced as happiness. Bliss of the self is reflected as happiness. The mind comes up. The mind was silent when the happiness came, when the bliss of the self, was experienced. So mind doesn't know that. Mind says the happiness is because I ate sugar. So mind associates happiness with the objects of the world. All happiness comes from the self when the mind becomes silent. So once we understand this formula, once we understand this, then we start looking for happiness, which is real happiness within the self, not outside the objects. Then the attention can shift back to the self. Otherwise, the attention will keep on going outside. Right? So for that simple question is, who am I is the question. Then attention has to go back to the self. This movement has to happen. That's all is self-inquiry, and that's all is journey. So for the who am I question, there's no answer, because self is not an object. Everything else is object. Self is the subject. For when the attention goes back to the self, there is a deep peace and happiness. That's all is the answer. My nature is happiness. My nature is bliss. So the recognition of that is attention going back to self. As long as the attention is wandering in the world, there's no happiness. Why attention wanders? Because I try something, I feel happy sometime. Okay, momentarily mind becomes silent. Then again mind becomes active. I am craving for that again. Okay, so again the craving is happening because the happiness is not in the object of the world. It's the wrong direction. So perpetually we are in wrong search. The real search is, who am I? The attention has to return back to self. Now the who am I question I'll slightly reframe. Okay. Because the who am I question, you may give some answer. I'm a husband, I'm a wife, okay, I am a man. All these are answers in the mental domain, mind domain, or memory. I'll ask the question, are you aware? What will you give the answer? Where is the awareness? Which part of the body is awareness? In the head, in the kidney, in the liver, in the body? Where is awareness? Awareness is not localized in the body. Awareness, knowing principle. Because body is also, you are aware of the body. That means body is also in awareness. You are aware of the mind. Mind is also in awareness. So awareness is not localized to body. So the attention cannot go back to any part of the body. Attention returns to awareness, which is not a localized area. So then if I ask you a question, are you aware? Then what will you say? One moment you think. Mind stops. Are you aware? No, you cannot do thinking now. When you ask the question, are you aware? You cannot do the thinking because your awareness itself. Now you say aware, I am aware. So there are two gaps. I ask the question, are you aware? There's one thought. To answer, before answering, there's a gap, and then there's an answer, I am aware. In between two in between two thoughts, you are awareness only. The attention has gone back to awareness, the self. So purpose of Ramana Maharshi's question, who am I, is to ask you to take your attention back to the self-awareness. I am aware is not an answer which can come from the mind, because awareness is my nature. I am the knowing principle. So we can change the question for who am I to am I aware? Then I cannot give a mental answer. I am the body, I am husband, and all those things. Am I aware? For that, there is no answer. There is no answer from the memory. Am I aware? Yes. When do I know I am aware? All the time. There's no point of time I'm unaware. We are in a dark room. Somebody's in a dark room. Ask a question. Okay. Is there a chair? I can't see. I don't know whether the chair is there. Table is there? I don't know. Are you there? Yes, I am there. Are you there? Yes, I am there. For that, there is no light required. I am self-aware. Okay. I am aware of myself. For that, there is no light required. But if I ask the question, how do you know you are aware? You are there. Because of my body, I am there, you say. So now you have confused the awareness with the body. Okay. Now, the spiritual journey is to remove this confusion of awareness with the body. The moment you confuse the awareness with the body, you identify the body. And who does this identification? This is called ego, the mind. Mind is causing the confusion. I am the body, I am the mind, I am the intellect. And why this mind is causing confusion? This confusion has to be removed. That's all spiritual journey. This is called viveka. The confusion between the awareness and the body. Awareness is independent principle. Awareness is light. Awareness is not an object. But you are mixing up with the object. The mind mixes with the object. And how this mixing up happens, we'll understand. For awareness is the light itself. Awareness is I am self-aware. But to be aware of something, I need an instrument. Okay. Suppose I want to see the stars and planets far away in the sky. I need a telescope. Then I can see galaxy. If I want to see the bacteria or atoms, then I need a microscope. I need a different instrument to see different things. Okay. When I have to see something else other than myself, I need an instrument. For seeing the self, I don't need an instrument. I am the self. Okay. I am the self is the awareness. But seeing something else, I need an instrument. What are the instruments I have? I have an instrument called body. I have an instrument called mind. I have an instrument called intellect. Body, mind, and intellect are my instruments. So what happened when I use the body? Through the eyes, I see the physical world. Eyes are called charma chakshu. With charma chakshu, I am seeing the world. And when I see with charma chakshu, eyes can see only gross objects. Eyes cannot see small objects. A microscope can only see small objects, and telescope can only see far away objects. Like that, eyes can only see gross objects. Okay. So when eyes see the gross object, the mind, which is the instrument, it makes a conclusion. The thought arises. For example, I am seeing a flower. The flower is a gross object. So the mind creates a thought. There are two thoughts which are generated in the mind. I am seeing the flower. There is I thought and flower thought. I thought is called aham vritti. Flower thought is called idam vritti. Two thoughts are generated. Aham vritti and idam vritti. Idam vritti is about the object. Aham vritti is about the subject. Okay. Subject thought and object thought is generated. The mind cannot know the self, Atma. Now, aham vritti is generated. I thought is generated. Now, I thought, it says body is the seer. Body is not the seer. Body is the instrument. But mind confuses the body as the seer because aham vritti is generated, and aham vritti, it has to associate something. It doesn't know the self. So let's say body is the self. So when I see the gross object, mind says the body is the seer and I become the body. I am considered body. So that's why I am the body thought comes up. Are we clear? This is a confusion which is happening in the mind. Mind has to tell somebody is the seer. Mind cannot know the seer. Mind cannot see the seer. It sees the body and says the body is the seer. Gross object you see, your gross body becomes you. Are you clear? Then you see the subtle objects. Subtle objects is thought. You close your eyes. Now the world is nothing but a thought. Everything is a thought now. The sun is a thought, the moon is a thought, earth is a thought, Bangalore is a thought. Right? So the mind says, I am seeing the subtle object. That's why I am the mind now. The mind takes the position, I am the mind now. So now instead of seeing, when you see the gross objects, you become the body. When you see subtle object, you become the mind. Right? So that's how I am the body, I am the mind, and the intellect comes in picture. When you see something, there are two thoughts generated, the object thought and subject thought. The subject thought is associated with the seer. In case of body seeing, the charma chakshu seeing, through a physical eyes or charma chakshu, when you see, mind says, I am the body. When you see the subtle eye, which is called mental eye, then everything is a thought. Then mind says, I am the mind. So it shifts the position from the I am the body to I am the mind. Both are not real because the seer is not the body, seer is not the mind. Seer is the consciousness, sakshi, witness, which is seeing through the eyes, which is seeing through the mind, which is seeing through the intellect. But eyes cannot see the Atma, the self, sakshi. The eyes cannot see the consciousness, witness. Eyes cannot see the Atma. Okay. The mind cannot see the Atma. The intellect cannot see the Atma. But Atma sees through the eyes, Atma sees through the mind, Atma sees through the intellect. But since mind cannot know the Atma, mind confuses the body as the Atma, or mind as the Atma, or intellect as the Atma, depending on the context, depending on what you see. Is this clear? The confusion is only with respect to seer. And the confusion is created by the mind, because mind cannot know the real seer. Wherever your attention goes, you get a knowledge. Attention is going through the physical eyes, you get the physical world as knowledge, and you consider yourself as physical body as you. Attention goes to the subtle thoughts, then subtle thought becomes the world, and you become the seer. The mind becomes the seer. To take your attention to the real seer, because real seer is not the body, real seer is not the mind, real seer is not the intellect. Question is to ask, who am I? Then the answer will come from the mind. Oh, you know what I am? I am the Atma. I am so and so. I am a husband. All these are from memory. That's again a thought. So then ask a question which mind cannot give you from answer from the thought. Are you aware? So then it's, am I aware? I cannot be a memory. So then hey, am I aware? So then your attention is going back to real self. Who am I? Question you can replace with, are you aware? Then attention go back to awareness. When attention goes back to the awareness, there's no knowledge, because awareness is of the Nanaswarupa, is the light of awareness. Attention goes back to the self. There is only peace. That's your real nature. There's a self-awareness. So we have to learn to take our attention back to the self. That's all in spiritual journey. And where is the self? Between every two thoughts, there is a gap. In that gap, the self alone is there. Between every two feelings, there is a gap. There, self alone is there. Between two experiences, there is a gap. There's a self alone is there. Between the waking state and dream state, there's a gap. In that, self alone is there. Between the dream state and deep sleep state, there's a gap. Self alone is there. Deep sleep state to waking state, there's a gap. Self alone is there. So attention has to go back to the self. Okay. Then I become aware of myself. Self-awareness is there. Otherwise, self is of the nature of light. Self is always aware. But the mind confuses and creates a self-identity and calls it as me. The me is the false identity. Real I is the self. So the false identity called me, the body, mind, and intellect, something happens. The body becomes old, mind is happier and happy, intellect has knowledge and ignorance, but the self has nothing, none of this. These are superimposed on the self, like a movie is superimposed on the screen. Attention has to revert back to the self. And I am that self. I am that Atma. This is actually what you call as self-realization. Self is not to be self. There's nothing called knowing of the self. I am the self. This is self-recognition. I have forgotten myself because my attention is always going outside, so looking for happiness. When I know that my happiness is real in the real self, the attention goes back to the self. So that is the spiritual journey. Ask a question, who am I? And take your attention back to the self. Or ask a question, am I aware? And take the attention, go back to the self. The self is the witness of the perceptions through the eyes, witness of thoughts in the mind, witness of knowledge in the intellect, ideas in the intellect. So I am that awareness. I am the self. So this recognition is called self-awareness. Very wrongly, the self-realization word is used. Self-realization is not required because self is already realized. Self is aware. It's a light itself. It's a luminous. It's a self-effulgent. Self-identity has to be dropped, and attention has to go back to self. That's called self-awareness. This is like a lady who is in a party. She's enjoying the party, and suddenly she remembers that she had brought a necklace from the house, and necklace is not there. She's worried. She starts looking for the necklace here and there. Then somebody asks her, "What is the necklace?" Then points the necklace in her neck and says, "What is that? Is that the necklace you're looking for?" Then the lady goes to the mirror and sees the necklace is on her neck only, and she was searching all around. Similarly, the self is always there. I am the self. My attention was going around. The lady's attention was going all around the function. The attention was not going back to the neck. Similarly, our attention is not going back to the self. Taking the attention back to the self is called self-awareness. That's called Atma. Wrongly, it's used. Wrongly, the word is called self-realization is used. We have heard of stories of monks. Somebody leaves everything in the house, okay, and he becomes a monk, and he starts wandering all over the country, and he goes to Himalayas, sits in a cave, meditates, and realizes the self. we're all fond of these stories of monk. It attracts us. Leaving the house, giving up everything, and going to a cave, meditating, and realizing itself. There are a lot of allegories. This monk went there. This monk got realized on Himalayas. He left his house and went there. So we have heard so many stories of the monks. What we don't understand is that this story of the monks represents the psychological nature of human beings. That's why it appeals to us. It appeals to us because that's what's happening within us. The story is outside, but really it's representing what's happening within us. That's why it appeals to us. The nature of the monk, and monk going to the forest, monk going to the Himalayas, monk going to staying in the cave and meditating. Here the monk represents the attention. Our attention keeps on wandering all over the place. That's the wandering monk. And monk goes for begging food. Our attention goes here and there, begging for happiness from various objects of the world. The monk has given up his house. Our attention has given up his house, Atma. The attention has come from the self, Atma. It is wandering all around. Atma is my house. The self, the witness is my house. The consciousness is my house. The attention goes out and keeps begging for food everywhere. Begging for food is like a monk. The begging for food is looking for happiness in the objects of the world. Then finally, a monk goes and meditates in a cave. The cave is the cave of the heart. It is said that God is found in the cave of your heart. Nihitam guhayam. In the cave of the heart, the self is found. The cave of the heart, the meditating in the cave is an analogy. Meditating in the cave is an allegory. So then everybody wants to get enlightenment, has to go and find a cave. It's not a physical cave. It is the cave of the heart. Cave of the heart is intellect. Heart is the intellect, buddhi. In the cave of the heart, the consciousness is reflected as chidabhasa. So in the cave of the heart, when you meditate, attention goes back to the cave of the heart. Attention goes back to the chidabhasa, the sakshi. There's a self-realization. The story of a monk who left his house, wandering all over, begging food from various houses, and finally meditating in the Himalayas and realizing self, has a psychological analogy, psychological relatedness to our attention. Monk, the attention of ours represents the monk. Attention leaves the house called Atma and keeps on wandering for happiness, like begging food from various places. Finally, it goes back to the cave of the heart, which is Atma, the self. The cave of the heart is intellect. Heart is intellect in Vedanta, buddhi. The cave of the heart, it's called cave because there's darkness. I don't know myself. In that cave of the heart, there is the light of the self, Atma Jyoti, reflected as Chidabhasa. The attention goes back to Chidabhasa, and there you recognize the self, Atma, Atma Jyoti, the real light of the self. And that is peace. And this happens on top of Himalayas. Himalaya is an allegory. Hima is the ice. It's white, snow. The whiteness in Vedanta and teaching represents the Sattva-guna, purified mind. And peak of the Himalayas, on top of the Himalayas requirements, and top of the mind. The peak of my mind is self-realization. We have heard, hey, he got a new job, yeah. He's top of the he's on top of the world. Means he's sitting on the top of the world, is it? Top of the world is an analogy. Similarly, top of Himalayas is an analogy. Himalayas represents the mind, which is Sattva-guna. On top of Himalayas, on the peak of Himalayas, I have a cave of my heart, which is called intellect. And there's darkness called avidya. In that, there's a light called Chidabhasa, Atma Jyoti. My attention goes back to my Atma Jyoti, awareness. And I realize myself. I recognize myself. It is like a lady recognizing her necklace. It's not getting the necklace. It is recognizing what you have. And this is called self-awareness. Today we'll close this discussion of self-awareness. Any questions are there, you can ask.